Ollie Watkins to Arsenal, everyone. Could it really be happening? Let's try and make sense of it all. I brought together everything we know, all the reports, everything that's being said. We're looking at the Arsenal side of things, the Villa side of things, the Watkins side of things. We want to look at Arsenal's history of transfers like this or bids like this. We want to see if it's genuinely possible. There's now some people disputing whether it was even a £60 million bid, but plenty saying that there will be a second one from Arsenal. This is the biggest move Arsenal have made in the window. That's not saying a lot because 29 days in, it's been very, very quiet, but we are going to dissect it all. Everyone, get in your comments, get in your thoughts. What I will say is, though, bear with me because I'm going to try and bring you everything that we know about this. I want to try and just I've accumulated all the tweets and everything. I want to make real sense of this because I'm really torn. A big part of me, just off the bat immediately, is really excited about the idea of Ollie Watkins wearing an Arsenal shirt. But there is something in me saying this doesn't quite add up. And I think we need to look at this a little cynically. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that just picking up an Ollie Watkins, even if we do, is like nothing to be excited about. It'd be something to be extremely excited about. He's a very good player. Arsenal want to win trophies now. He scores goals now. I'm much, much, much more in favour of this deal than Sesko in January or Cunha in January. Now, come the summer, maybe there's a different conversation to be had. But for now, for what we need to try to do this season, which is something spectacular in the Champions League, of course, we are playing in an hour as our Villa. That's part of the narrative and part of the twist in all this. For what we're trying to do now, try chase Liverpool. We need goals in the back of that net today. And that is something that Arsenal would certainly get if they brought in an Ollie Watkins. So let's go into everything we know. I want to talk a little bit about some other stuff towards the end of this too. So it won't just be transfer related, but of course we're going to cover the Ollie Watkins stuff first. Welcome everyone. I'll go through all your comments in a little bit. Let's start with the person who really deserves the credit, the secret scout. Here we go. I'm just reshuffling my screen so I can see everything properly. This was the exclusive that dropped 2 hours ago. The Arsenal approached Aston Villa to sign Ollie Watkins, a fee in the region of £60 million. No agreement or decision yet, but talks with Villa and player representatives advancing as Arsenal try to land striker before deadline day. Aston Villa want to get João Felix in before they consider selling Watkins. Watkins wants the move. We've got to give huge credit to Secret Scout. A lot of people have come out since and defended, or not defended, but backed up the news and come with their own story. But this is really big from Secret Scout, a massive exclusive. Some people saw it do the rounds and they said, who's this? Is this someone who typically covers transfers? Is this reliable? It doesn't really make much sense. But since then, everyone's come out with it, from Fabrizio Romano to Sami Mokbel, who right now seems to be the guy in the Arsenal journalism space. And yeah, full credit to him. Now, I want to go through the next part because there's plenty of other things. I want to go through the next thing that Secret Scout said. He's got more on the Ollie Watkins stuff. He understands that terms between, he or she, may I say, understands that terms between representatives and Arsenal is not a problem. Aston Villa see Duran as a long-term centre-forward and are open to selling Watkins at the right fee. Talks are underway. This is a big line. Aston Villa see Duran as a long-term centre-forward and are open to selling Watkins at the right fee. So let's think about this from the Villa perspective, if we're to believe this, because there's a few Villa perspectives we're going to have to think about. Firstly, 29 years old. Because we're so used to the Arsene Wenger never gave out more than 1 year contracts to players over 30, I think it's warped our minds that players, especially like an Ollie Watkins, who it's about the movement, the finishing, the positioning. He's only been playing Premier League football the last 5 years or so. This is a player who could easily go to 33, 34, 35. Look what Jamie Vardy's doing at 37. And he was a player who was built around pace, wasn't he? I don't think that the 29-year-old thing is going to be the reason why they might be willing to sign him, and also a reason why we should be unsure about signing him. I think if you're unsure about signing Watkins, it should be because you don't necessarily rate the player as highly as whatever target you think we should be going for, not because you're worried about the age. Arsenal need goals now. At 29, he's in his prime. He's ready to bring goals now. You could argue this is the perfect profile to bring in age-wise, experience and all that. When you look at his numbers for goals, for sure, that there's so many positives. So they might see Duran as a long-term centre forward. That might be true, but we know that he could be moving. We've got to discuss that in a second too. If we take this comment at face value, and the Secret Scout broke the news, right? They broke the news that Arsenal were in talks for Ollie Watkins and had made a bid. So I think we've got to take everything they say as pretty accurate, if not completely accurate, because of everything else. I mean, every other journalist coming in now will undoubtedly have good info to add, but will also been briefed somewhat by clubs. And we need to kind of appreciate that. This has come out of nowhere and broken by someone that we don't typically go to for transfer news. So huge credit to the Secret Scout for that. And by the way, apologies if I'm wrong. If the Secret Scout's actually been spot on with previous transfer stuff, hold my hands up and I get that wrong. It's not a source I've typically gone to, but full credit on this story. There's no question. And we'll be keeping an eye out for more in future. There's no doubt. Could they see Duran as the long-term centre forward? Potentially. They might think, look, Duran could be an £80 million asset or more for a few more years still. Is this maybe your last chance to get this kind of fee for Ollie Watkins? That might be in their mind. Why would they be open to selling? Do they have PSR concerns? I mean, they sold Douglas Luiz and they sold Moussa Diaby in the summer. So really, and they were for big fees, about 50 and £60 million. But is there any sort of financial risk? They did spend about 170, 180 million pounds in the summer. So is there a pressure financially to sell Watkins? I don't think so. But maybe the fact they sold those two players, Moussa Diaby after a year, tells you that they are willing to sell at the right price for certain players. So I don't know. You could read that in a few different ways. More on them, though. We need to talk about this. Arsenal see their surprise bid for Ollie Watkins rejected by Aston Villa, according to Ed Aarons, who don't want to sell. So this is contradicting what the Secret Scout has said. Like I said, credit to Secret Scout, who was the first to bring a lot of this news, but important that we give you everything. This is from Ed Aarons, who has come in saying the bid's been rejected. Villa don't want to sell. John Cross has come in. And we'll chat about Mattis Tell in a bit. Arsenal have had a £60 million bid for Aston Villa striker Ollie Watkins turned down, but are ready to make a fresh offer. Sammy Mockbell said the same thing. They launched stunning swoop for Ollie Watkins, a long shot, but Arsenal were working on it. We'll go through the Mattis Tell stuff in a second. Then there's this from Alex Crook. Villa are not happy with the timing. Talk Sports Alex Crook. Villa are not happy with the timing of Arsenal's approach for Watkins, given they have a huge game tonight. But as detailed here, it is believed Watkins would be open to the move if the two clubs can agree a fee between now and Monday. One to watch with interest. Okay, a couple more layers to this now. The timing isn't great because of the Champions League football kicking off in literally 53 minutes. They are playing a huge game at home to Celtic. They sit 9th in the Champions League table. There's no guarantee they go through in the top 8, and then perhaps they're going to have a tricky qualifier. It's not ideal. It's really not ideal timing for Aston Villa whatsoever. Now, in terms of Ollie Watkins, whether he'd be up for the move, open for the move, he said in an interview when he was a Brentford player, that his dream would be to play for Arsenal. I think Sky Sports said that there's sort of some history of him saying that Thierry Henry is one of his idols. Hey, the number 14 shirt's available. But yeah, if Arsenal come knocking, what's Ollie Watkins saying to Villa? What's he saying to them? I imagine it goes along the lines of, because he seems like a classy guy, seems like a good guy, always spoken very well, has always been very respectful with his clubs. Scored a lot of goals wherever he's been, works incredibly hard. I mean, there's a lot to love about this player. He's probably knocked on their door and gone, I want to go. And it's probably with a caveat of, if you keep me and you can't do the deal, I understand, but my preference is to go. I imagine. And by the way, that's all assumption. He might not. In fact, he probably hasn't knocked on that door. He's probably just letting his, in fact, I'm talking nonsense. He's probably let his agents and people do what they've got to do to establish with the club whether there is a potential for a sale. And they will know from a quick phone call with Ollie, this is the one you want, right? You've spoken about this club, and he's either gone yes or no. So we'll see. But I think there's definitely something in this. They're not happy with the time of Arsenal's approach. And we've got to talk about why that gives me doubts, the timing of the approach. We'll get into that. It's believed that Watkins would be open to a move. Just because he wants to play for Arsenal, by the way, or has said 5 years ago, right? Football changes very quickly. He's loved at Aston Villa. I'm sure he loves that club, and he's brilliant there. He's been absolutely terrific. Sometimes you're better off just staying where you are, proven by Jamie Vardy, right? Arsenal wanted Vardy. We haven't won a title since wanting him. He's won an FA Cup, and he's a legend at Leicester. So it's not always the right thing to make that move. And I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. But Vardy, I don't think, has the history of interest in Arsenal that Jamie Vardy, that Ollie Watkins appears to have. So then the next layer to all this exclusive from Romano. Al Nazir are on the verge of reaching verbal agreement with Aston Villa for John Duran at 75 million euros with add-ons. We're looking at a 65 to 75 million pound fee in total. But formal steps are needed as Al Nassr also have advanced negotiations in place for Victor Boniface of Bayer Leverkusen. And only one striker will join. This could be huge, people. If Boniface goes to Leverkusen, and Villa feel that they need to establish some sort of number one when it comes to the striking department, which has always been Watkins, but of course Duran's been fantastic too. If they go for Boniface, Al Nassr, and Duran stays, and obviously we've got to keep into account what the secret scout said about Villa seeing Don Duran as a long-term centre forward for them. But if Boniface goes, that Watkins deal feels easier to do. If they're on the verge of agreeing this deal with Villa, though, and they get John Duran and choose him, because while I've barely watched Boniface, Duran's a very, very, very good player. There's every chance he's the better of the two players and the one they want to go for. There's just no way they sell both Watkins and Duran in one window. It would just baffle me. Villa are a club who've shown a lot of ambition. They brought in Unai Emery, a big, big, big manager. They've played European football 2 years in a row, getting into the Champions League last season, finishing fourth. They've signed players like, and kept hold of Mercedes, players like Emi Martinez, players like Emi Buendia when Arsenal were looking to sign him too. The likes of Moussa Diaby have come in, Amadou Onana. These are big players, Pau Torres. Really good footballers have gone to Aston Villa under a very good manager. They've developed some of their own. They've taken players like Morgan Rogers that no one knew too much of and taken them to real heights. John Duran is one of those. And, they've still got plenty to play for, quite literally in 48 minutes as well. So I just don't see a world in which they let both go. I'm kind of surprised they're definitely letting either go. When you're talking this sort of money, you could understand why, having brought in Donyell Marlin, who could play up front and on the right wing, Morgan Rogers, I think, could probably play up front too. I could see why they're going, all right, for that kind of money, they brought John Duran in for less than 10 million, I think. They're probably looking at it and going, that is really, really good business from the club. Business I wish Arsenal did a bit more of. But yeah, we're not quite so good in that sense. So this is a really, really interesting piece of information too, and one to keep an eye out. We're going to go through the other stuff in a little bit. In fact, we'll chat about Tell, but we are one of the 4 clubs in for Matis Tell, and that was mentioned here as well by John Cross. The Gunners are also interested. Want to play Bayern Munich winger. Matis Tell has indicated his intention to move. Okay. So we've established all the news in about 12 minutes. I hope that's clear. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and I'll go through comments in a sec. Let me just give you my thoughts on all this. I've made my list of notes, so I'll just make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. Here's my thoughts on Ollie Watkins as a player. And I think to do this, I want to bring up his numbers. Here we go. So here we are on Transfermarkt. 69 goals and 31 assists. So that's quite literally, that's quite literally 100 goals and assists in 169 games is a very good return. We need to remember that it wasn't really till these 2 seasons here that Villa was serious. And when I say serious, competing with the big boys, looking for Champions League football. This year, they started with Steven Gerrard, and Emery came in and got Ollie Watkins scoring, there's no doubt. But still, 14 goals, 5 assists, 11 and 2, 15 and 6, 19 and 13, 10 and 5. And that's 10 and 5 by 23 game stage. Does he hit 19? I'm not sure, but he should hit another 16, 17, even if he stays at Villa. But 19 and 13 is an exceptional return. We're looking there at, my maths is terrible, 32. Is that right? Yeah, yeah, that's right. 32 goals and assists in 37 games. It's a really, really, really good return. And you look at some of the minutes played, 3,000 minutes, 2,900, 3,000, 3,000, 1,600 by the halfway stage, playing a lot of football. Look at the amount of 90s, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90. I mean, this is phenomenal. Came off against Manchester United, then wasn't in the squad. So was that injury related? Comes back, plays another low 90s, misses 2 games, comes off for 10 minutes, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90. I mean, it's an extraordinary amount of just 90s he's got. Now, to be fair, that's all the way from 2020, which I didn't realise. So let's go to more recently this season. And again, a little bit more mixed. We go to the season, yeah, loads. Look at all the 90s in there. Look at all the 90s in there from 2023 onwards. This is a very, very, very reliable player who scores goals, plays minutes, gets goals and assists. There's a really good piece of analysis done by Jamie Carragher last season on Ollie Watkins, talking about his favouring of pulling off to the left and driving in that space, is getting him a lot of assists too. And this is why I also think he brings very different to Kai Havertz, who typically drifts right. And Ollie could help that left-hand side a little bit like Gabby Jesus did. So there's a lot to love about the player. And I'd love him. I'd love him at Arsenal for sure. There's no question. He'd have an impact immediately. He's better than what we've got. And if you're talking about ready-made strikers, you can come in and have an impact now. Ollie's one of the few. I mean, there's Erling Haaland at Man City. You're never going to get him for obvious reasons. There's Osman, there's Gyökeres, kind of the two that people being talked about. That's probably it. And I'd say Ollie Watkins is like the fourth or fifth in there. Unless I'm forgetting other names, please come in and tell me. If you're talking about pure strikers, yeah, I think he's one of them. Because when you're talking about Sesko or Cunha, you're talking about Cunha, who's kind of going to do a job as a false nine, but could play out wide too. And you talk about Sesko as kind of one for the future. That puts Watkins above both for me and the player that I would want for sure over those two. Top player. And I see why Arsenal want him, and I can see why Villa love him. Well, Villa obviously love him, but Arteta loves him. Here's my concern. And I'm really sorry to pour cold water on this, but this feels like the Caicedo bid did in January 2023, where we'd missed out on Mudryk for big money. We wanted to add a winger and a defensive midfielder. We kind of settled on bringing in Trossard for 27 million, so it's clearly money to play with there. And we ultimately, put in 3 bids, I think, for Brighton's midfielder, who they fundamentally said they weren't going to sell. And they were a club open to doing some business that window. They sold Trossard to us. And maybe they were kind of forced because of contractual reasons and all that. But they basically said, no, we're not letting Caicedo go. Now, the difference between the Caicedo and the Watkins situation is Watkins is 30, and I don't know how many clubs are looking for a striker, and I don't know how many opportunities there'll be to get that move that he supposedly, historically, has really wanted in Arsenal. Caicedo is different. Caicedo, there was always interest from Chelsea, from Liverpool, other clubs. And in the summer, the fact that he went for 115 million when we bid 75 million, basically went for 40 million pounds more, is not that surprising. And Brighton always kind of knew that there was that potential deal to do. I don't know if Villa know there's that potential deal to do. So that's fine. They might not need the money. But Ollie Watkins might not have that ease that Caicedo had. Remember, Caicedo kicked up a fuss, didn't he? There was a transfer request. He put a statement out. I don't expect Watkins to do any of that. But I'm sure, he'll be kind of wondering, is this kind of my only chance at that Arsenal move? The reason I think there's a bit of a Caicedo situation is, sorry to be really cynical, but it's the optics of it. I don't really know, when we knew that Villa probably felt there wasn't really room for Duran and Watkins long term. I don't really know why this wasn't something we did earlier in the window when we knew we needed players, when we knew we had loads of football to play. I also don't know why we've done this on a day. And look, it could be that the bid happened Tuesday or Monday. It could be that it depends who's breaking these stories, right? Is it coming from the Villa side or the Arsenal side? And however you break it can manipulate how that club's move is viewed. But I don't know why we would do this quite literally 4 or 5 hours before they're playing Celtic in the Champions League. What the story coming out? I mean, if it was kept internal, that might be a bit different. But even then, so there are some suggestions from ITKs that this conversation with Watkins has been going on for a long, long time. That's rubbish. I don't mean that. For a longer time. When I say long, long time, because I'm thinking in the context of the last 4 or 5 hours, but long, long time makes it sound like it's weeks and months. I'm talking like the last 5 days, week, maybe even 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe Arsenal have been approaching this. If you're going to try and get a big transfer like this done, it can take some time. I appreciate that. But this feels extremely late. I think if this was like the 15th or 16th, I might be a bit more understanding. This feels extremely late for me to kind of not to view it a touch cynically. Now, I think it's a great move for a great player if we do get it done. But I have to ask that question about whether there's a Caicedo-ness to it, where we tried to go for the big one. There aren't many sort of proven goal scorers, certainly at Premier League level, that we can get. We went for one of the only ones that we thought we could. We showed ambition. Ultimately, we're going to end up with this guy on loan. whatever that, whoever that might be, or whatever that signing is. That's what makes me a little bit cynical about this, if I'm being really, really honest. But let's see. Let's see. To sum up, lots of conflicting reports. The Boniface deal to Anazir is going to play a part because it affects whether they get John Duran. Villa aren't happy. Should we be worried about that? Maybe, I don't know. I also think there's something in that, actually. Like, do Arsenal make the bid on a day that's going to annoy them because they're probably going to reject it? And then we know that, I don't know. Why do we want to ask? Listen, I'm just trying to look at a world in which, I think with Caicedo, did Arsenal really think Brighton were ever going to turn around and accept it? No, I don't think they did. That's, and maybe they think the same with Villa, but I'm looking at it very cynically. It could be that they've done a lot of work, that Jason Ato, Mikel Arteta has done a lot of work in the background, Tim Lewis, whoever's involved, to get to this position with Ollie Watkins, and they felt that this was the time to make the bid. Let's find out. Let's find out in the coming days and hours. As I'm here, I may as well just see if there's any update, and there isn't, as far as I'm aware, and that makes complete sense because we are literally kicking off in 39 minutes in the Champions League. So there's the breakdown of everything. I don't think we sign him, if I'm honest. I don't think we're going to get Ollie Watkins. As much as I'd really like us to do this deal, I think it'd be a really good deal for Arsenal to do, but I don't think we'll get him. And I think we'll get someone. I think the Tell stuff is very possible. I think we could get Mattis Tell. He can play on the left, he can play up front. I'm no expert on him. I'll do my research, but seems very pacey. Can play across the front three, and is a more has more variety to kind of the positions he can pick up in this Arsenal side than Ollie Watkins. I think if Arsenal want to really get fans off their seats, if you really want to do something that suggests a bit of flexing in the market and a bit of no, like we're ambitious, and okay, ambitious may be a strong word, but we want to show you all that we're serious and that we are really addressing our problems. We want to leave no stone unturned in the second half of the season. Then Watkins for 70 million. Listen, they probably would want more than that, but I'm just coming up with a figure. Watkins for 70 million. Tell on loan with an option, and then Sven Ipan. So you get that young, creative midfielder in who adds some depth in that area too. One for the future too, for around 10, 15 million they're talking about. You have an 85 million pound window, which 3 players like that come in. I would feel a lot better about the direction this squad is going in and the quality that we've just added to our forward line and what there is in terms of reserves, in terms of creativity in midfield. When you look at Erdegaard as well, when you look at Waneri, when you look at Nipan, and then you're building the front three off Saka, Tell, Martinelli, Trossard, Havertz, Ollie Watkins, I'd feel much, much differently. And if we get that, well, I would have to say fair play. But I think we're a long way from that, one at a time, because I'm dreaming of 3 there. We haven't even got 1. So we need to remain grounded. But I'm just trying to give you an idea for where my excitement levels could be at. Ollie Watkins, though, I'd be very happy about. Okay, I've ignored all your comments so far. I hope you can forgive me. I really wanted to cover all that properly for people who are going to tune in a little bit later too. Let's go through your super chats first. Vasant says, if it means we can still get a young striker and starting left wing in the summer, then I'm all in. Well, significant fees will go to this one. So I don't know if it means we could necessarily get both. But let's see. Balder says, I like your level-headed mindset. Most rumors are nonsense, and mentioning Arsenal brings engagement. You see why we are linked to all strikers. True, but I think this one is real. Josh says, some fans say this is the Arsenal board making a cynical attempt at signing to claim that they tried in Jan. Do you lend any credence to this take? I think I answered that earlier, Josh, but let me know in the comments. You have to send another super chat, and of course, thank you for your super chat. Let me know in the comments if I did address that and what I said just before, probably after you sent your super chat. Tevin says, I like this move. His age allows for Williams and or Sesko to still come in the summer while adding a good proven Prem attacker in Watkins. Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. Right, let's make our way through some of your comments. We got Ian Wright at 28. I saw a similar tweet. Was he, I don't want to say old, but he's still a young man, but was he at that age? Yeah, I mean, interesting. Watkins isn't good enough. There's been a few of those, but Kai thinks that RVP was 29. Just by the way, on the Ian Wright thing, that's one of the greatest strikers in Premier League and Arsenal history. I mean, yeah, it's a good point. And strikers do bloom late sometimes. My Whole Milk says might be a publicized offer to pressure other deals to move forward. That is interesting. Yeah, it could be if there's other stuff happening. is this a way to kind of hurry that along? Yeah, it's another good way of looking at it. No, James, it's a no-brainer in this window. Buy Arsenal, buy. Yeah, I mean, if we can get him for 60 to 70 minutes, a no-brainer, I would definitely do it. I'm just not convinced. Louis Balaclava says, I'd rather Mattis Tell. A lot of love for Mattis Tell. And I can see why. When you do watch some of the comps, he looks really, really good, but I need to do more research. Obi, I disagree with this. Respectfully, Watkins is not good enough. I mean, what are you looking for? With all due respect, I mean, proven goals in the Premier League, scored goals for a team that got into the Champions League. I think he's been scoring goals in the Champions League. Actually, I actually haven't looked at his record in that competition this season. Look at the finish for England at the Euros. Look at that finish. We don't have that finish in us. We do not, across the squad, have that finish. Maybe Bukayo Saka, but we rarely get him onto that left side to do that onto his left foot. He's a really top player. Addicted92 says, hi, James. Love what you do. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I'm trying hard not to get excited because if we don't get this through, it'll be such a letdown. I know what you mean. Hope it does, though, as he's Premier League proven will score goals. Totally and utterly understand. Some people saying it's too late because because Duran's going to Saudi Arabia, but I don't think that's absolutely confirmed yet. Yeah, I think this is true. 60 million in 2025 is 30 million in the 2020 market. Maybe not 2020, but if you look at 10 years ago, 2015, I agree. 60 million is just kind of a standard fee these days. What else have we got? I've been waiting, wanting Watkins for ages now. Hope we get him. And people should remember how old Ian Wright was. Is there anything? There's another super chat that did come in. Steamboat Williams says 32 non-penalty goals and assists last season. Wow, he didn't take penalties last season. Most in the league. Yes, above Haaland and Palmer. Wow. I mean, that tells you something about his output as well. We've got 3 minutes left because I'm going to leave you all so I can... so you can go get ready for all the Champions League football. There's going to be lots of great action. I'll be doing a match report as well to react to the game and talk a little bit more about this if we get more information, and we'll know more about Villa and everything going on with them and their Champions League campaign at full time. So yeah, there will be another video on this channel. Thank you, by the way, Brax. I really appreciate this. Really happy to see the continued growth of this channel. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. My question to all of you before I go into my final bits of news. Does Ollie Watkins significantly change our chance at a title? Does he bring the goals that can put us on a run? Does he elevate us? Does he change our chance at a Champions League significantly? Ultimately, that's what we want that sign to come in and do. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, whether you're watching this later or let me know in the lives now. Let me just quickly get this in front of me too. I just want to go through the Arsenal 11 for tonight's game because we are playing Girona in half an hour. Here we go. Give me 1 second. And let's share this tab. Right, there we go. Neto gets a start. Good to see that for him. Partey, Kivior, Gabriel, Calafiori, Jorginho, Marino, Odegaard, Waneri, Sterling, Trossard, Neto. I think it's only right that he is playing. I think Partey, we've got no choice there because we're so depleted at right back. And I think a couple games ago didn't start. So fine. Kivior makes sense. Calafiori needs some minutes. Jorginho, Marino, Odegaard, I think it's to be expected. Waneri on the right is great to see. And it looks like going to be Sterling on the left. So I hope he has a much better performance on the left because I think he's looked really uncomfortable on the right. Hopefully on the left he looks a bit better, can give us something there. And Trossard in the false nine is something I've wanted to see for a while. So good to see that. Final thing, and I'm not going to give this too much time because it just infuriated me so much. But Andy Dunn wrote an article. I'm not going to tell you where to find it. I'm not even going to go into it too much. I shared a tweet. Rory Talks Football broke it down really well, and I've reposted it. But the way he portrayed, let me just read you some of the stuff that was said very quickly. I've got the screenshots before the article supposedly, I think, amended a bit, and some of the I think the tweet was deleted by the paper. I think it was the Mirror. I said I wasn't going to promote, but there we go. It's portrayed Lewis Skelly as no victim, but in fact the villain of what happened on the weekend. he described what Lewis Skelly did in that tackle as a premeditated attack to foul play. I'm reading exact quotes that were in that article. Claims that his only intention was to make sure Doherty was unable to carry on taking part in attacking phase of play. It's called a tactical foul. It wasn't premeditated. It's quite literally a split-second decision, and it's a literally in the moment. I've got to make a decision. And you got to remember, when you're an 18-year-old and you're playing men's football, you're playing with people sometimes 20 times, to 20 years older than you, and you've got to look after yourself, and you've got to, show that you belong in the game. All this going through your head. You're playing for a club under immense pressure, proven by nonsense articles like this that can come out. I think to use words like premeditated is extremely unfair. He then described Lewis Skelly as scraped his studs down the Wolves player's leg, and then said it was Skelly who performed as cynical an act of law breaking as you'll see on a football field. This is so dramatic and horrible, horrible writing about an 18-year-old who just made a cynical tackle that we have seen time and time again, who articles have been written about Man City's brilliance of the tactical foul. I'm not saying that what Lewis Skelly did in that foul wasn't cynical, but we see it all the time. And for that to be the angle, I had to say something about it. I was so disappointed in that report. I'm glad the tweet's been deleted, and I hope the article continues to be amended till it's eventually deleted, because I can't believe that was said by Andy Dunn. Really, really, really poor piece of writing and a really poor take on the situation. And I hope that it just doesn't affect Lewis Skelly, because the media can be so just nasty at times. All right, going to leave it there. Big thanks to everyone who's tuned in. I really, really, really appreciate it. That's the news. Ollie Watkins. Is it going to happen? I have my doubts, but Arsenal are trying, supposedly. Let's see. Come on, Arsenal. Let's get the big win later. It's Girona away. And I'm interested to see where we finish in this group. And then I'm very interested to see who our potential ties could be in the next round. Catch you all in a bit.